I'd like to call to order the March 12th, 2024 monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of South Granville Water and Sewer Authority. I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight and thank you for coming. And with that, we'll go to our roll call.
Mr. Jordan.
Present.
Mr. Gooch.
Present.
Mr. Karen.
Present.
Ms. Kaczynski will not be with us this evening. Mrs. Daniels.
Present.
Mr. McLam.
Present.
Mr. Way.
Present.
All are accounted for.
Okay, thank you. And now, if you will, please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come here and do business for the South Granville Water and Sewer Authority. May what we do be pleasing in your eye and be to the best of our ability to do what we can for not only our citizens, but our employees and our staff and our system. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. And now for a roll call. Pledge of allegiance.
Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Come on.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any adjustments to the agenda? Does anyone have anything needs to be added or deleted? If not, then I'll
Make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
all right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Any discussion on the motion? If not, let's go to the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Review and approval of minutes from our February 13th board meeting. Trust everyone's had a chance to read through these and make sure everything's in order. Any questions, comments?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And public comments. Do we have Mr. Todd Sweetster? Yes, if you will come forward and just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Todd Stephen Sweetser. I live at 1361 Well Circle. My post office is Fremont, however, I'm in the Butler District.
Yes, sir.
Trying to only take a couple minutes of your time. I'm in an unusual situation. I'm retired from UNC hospitals. I've been a public servant most of my life, but also a school teacher. I've also served on my board at my HOA for over 8 years. I'm back on the board last week. So I appreciate, I know what it's involved to be on a board and be a public servant. So I thank you for having me speak to you. I had a interesting situation. My board a couple of years ago turned off our backflow meters because we had lots of rain. And so I keep my yard up. So occasionally I turn on sprinklers with a water timer to be very careful with water usage to maintain my yard myself on my own expense. However, being gone during the holidays around New Year's Eve, our weather report showed it would not drop below freezing. However, on December 31st, it dropped below freezing for 3 to 4 or 5 hours and my water timer burst. I got home from Minneapolis, St. Paul 2 days later, was sick, didn't know until about 3 days later, I had basically 4 or 5 days of a water burst outside, and I knew I was going to have a high bill. Half of that water usage was for the January bill, and half I knew would come up later. So basically, then I asked to see someone in the office. I was told I couldn't talk to anybody until I filled out a request for a leak adjustment. The customer notice on here is very discouraging for anybody in a situation like me. I figured I don't have any chance of an appeal. However, my second bill came in with a very high amount. I had like 16,000 gallons of water over my usual usage. That letter stated I might be able to have an adjustment based on certain things. So basically, I have my records. I'm hoping that when I talk to someone in the office in the next week or two or this month, that I'll have a good hearing and some chance to be heard. I have my documents for what I've been doing as far as watering and the water timers would have been placed. I have photographs and evidence. When I removed that broken meter, I ordered another from Walmart at a discount, installed that. It failed. I had another leak for about 5 days. This was in the middle of February. Great. So I have documents. I returned that meter. I bought a very expensive Rainbird meter, which is very high quality, expensive, and it's currently in use. So I hope that whoever I talk to with the office will give me a good hearing. That's pretty much it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And I have a question. Did you have,
I can hand out a document there by about 7 copies. I thought there were 7 on the board if you'll accept that. It's besides my water usage and also the document. So
I haven't had an opportunity to look at this yet.
I would ask that you all not look at this and review the policy. I think that the way this works is that staff reviews the decision and then brings it to the board, and you all may have to sit as a deciding factor. We need to review the policy. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shut you down. I'm just saying that I think the process is this comes up through staff, and then staff makes a decision, makes a recommendation to the board, and you could appeal to the board at a later date.
well, my first impression from the staff at the office was fill this form out, which you have on one copy. The form was very discouraging for my situation, and I thought I didn't trip the 5,000 gallon. I had a 4,500 gallon overrun. And so I would also feel that they changed that policy to something like if your water usage is double what you usually use, you should get a letter. I got a letter last night saying I might have a chance of an appeal. I didn't know that till 24 hours ago, but I'd already prepared all this.
Well, let us go through the normal process, and then if an appeal has to come to the board, I want to make sure they're not prejudiced in the information that they've heard already, because I think they're the final decision maker.
Okay.
So again, I'm
You don't
speaking
want me to ask any questions, right?
not now.
Okay.
No, I mean, and I apologize. But
The board.
what's that?
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'm just using my opportunity to talk to the board.
Sure. And again, I think they sit in a similar to a quasi-judicial role in reviewing the decision of staff after they make a decision on it. And we just want to make sure that staff has an opportunity to make a decision, and that an appeal, if necessary, comes to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to follow up with the gentleman on this topic.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
all right. And let's see, did we have any board discussion items for tonight? Okay, then we'll move on to our I-85 sanitary sewer system improvement project update. And I believe we have a presentation by our executive director and the representatives from CDM Smith.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things before I ask Reed Barton from CDM Smith to join us at the podium. Just some background information for the board and for the public. In 2019, Saguaso received a comprehensive sanitary sewer system evaluation, commonly referred to as the I-85 study. The I-85 study evaluated the major sanitary sewer trunk lines and pump stations throughout the study area to determine the needed improvements to meet both short-term and long-term needs. In 2000, Saguaso started working with professional engineering design consultant CDM Smith on the project. CDM Smith is providing the engineering, design, financial application assistance, and bidding services for this project. So with us this evening, of course, we have Reed Barton from CDM Smith, Michael Sloop, our project manager, and Bo Mackey. So Reed, if you please come up. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, board, for having us here to give an update on the project. It's a very important project, very important to Saguaso, very important to CDM Smith. Got a large team that is focused on delivering as the board knows, it's a large price tag and a large complex project. And we've been at it with staff for a number of years now. Feel very confident in the technical decisions that have been made so far in the direction that SIGWAS is headed on this, and look forward to some of our team giving an update to the board tonight. I think it'll be very helpful. So, and before Michael, if you want to come up, I've got Michael Sloop here. Michael is our project manager, and also with us is Bo Mackey, who's one of the lead project engineers designing the new pump stations and the new sewer lines. You know, the background in this project, Mike will go into it a lot more detail, but SIGWASA has a large and complex sewer system that has several bottlenecks. When we're trying to get water from the outer reaches of the system all the way to the treatment plant, there are several places where there are choke points, and it limits the ability of the whole system to convey the wastewater that's coming into your system to where it needs to go at the treatment plant. So that is, in a nutshell, as you can imagine, a very important project. We can't get the water to the wastewater to the wastewater plant. Causes a tremendous technical challenge. So that's all I had to say. I want to say thank you for CDM Smith and SIGWASA have been in partnership tackling engineering challenges for more than 10 years now, and we thank you for your trust in our firm. So, Michael.
Thank you, Reed. Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Volume okay for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. So like Reed, Scott introduced, my name is Michael Sloop. I'm the project manager for CDM Smith. I've been working with the firm in May will be 24 years. So had a pretty good run there, really enjoy what I do. And this has been definitely one of the highlights of my career. So really appreciate the opportunity to work on this with you. Is there a way to change the slides or you take care of it? Okay, great. So agenda for today, we're going to run through some background on the project, talk about where we started. Scott mentioned 2020 to where we're at today. Then I'm going to walk you through some of the summary of where we're at with funding, and then we'll end with a discussion on the schedule, overall project schedule, and some of our immediate next steps. And I'll mention too, if you're anything like me and you're going through a presentation, you come up with questions as you're working through it. By the time the person gets to the end, the question's gone. At least it is for me. So please don't hesitate to interrupt and ask me questions along the way. Happy to have discussions as we're working through the presentation, and then we'll get through it together. Right. Background. So project phase number 1, what we called it, started around 2021. It began with a hydraulic model evaluation, and then we transitioned that into a capacity evaluation, and then looking at a number of different alternatives for how we address those issues. Some of you, if you were in the presentation that we gave back in late 2021, this will be a little bit of a recap of that. Phase 2, we began that in 2022. We started with a preliminary engineering evaluation, which culminated into a report, and we began the data collection phase, and we'll get into some more details on that. And then phase 3, which is where we're at now. We're in final design, working through permitting, easement acquisition, and then hopefully we'll be advertising for construction in the not too distant future. Okay, again, so taking a step back, this is going to be a recap of some information we've presented before. We began with doing some flow monitoring in your system. We did some additional monitoring, pulse monitoring that was done before we got involved. And we utilized that information to determine flows, what the wastewater flows in your existing system are. So we have average daily flows shown here and peak daily flows. And we have a couple different planning periods. So the existing conditions, which was back in 2021 when we did the analysis, and then a forecast of 2045, and ultimately what we deem build out. And the locations shown here are a couple of the key points along the project area that we were taking a look at those capacities. So not going to get too much into the details on these numbers. The gist here is you can see if you just look at, for example, peak daily flow for the Southern Interceptor, existing system sees around 5.9 MGD. By 2045, we're projecting that could get upwards of 12.01 MGD, 12 MGD. That's a significant increase in flow, right? And that's a positive. That's a good thing. That means there's growth and there's interest in the area and there's great opportunities with that. So that's a very positive situation. On the next slide, though, we'll talk about some of the challenges that come with that. So after we developed the flows, we used a hydraulic model to input those flows into your system, into the model. And then we had kind of the backbone of the system, the large diameter pipes, the larger pump stations. And we run that model and we see, all right, where are some of the, like Reed mentioned, the choke points in your system? Where are we having capacity limitations? The pipes aren't big enough or the pump stations aren't big enough. Several different colors on this map. I think the key item on here is really those little red dots. What those little red dots are those are SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows. And these are projected, right? This is from a model, but this is where we're saying, okay, the system is so limited that there's the opportunity here for flow to come out of the system during a wet weather event. And in this case, we're looking at a 2-year design storm. That's a rain event. And you see a red dot at Joe P lift station, red dot at East Milton lift station. We've got a red dot on the bottom left-hand corner. That's a Southern Interceptor or a branch to the Southern Interceptor. And then a bunch of red dots there towards the top of the page. So that's the Northern Interceptor. So that's definitely a choke point in the system. So now we know where the problem areas are. We know where the limitations are in your system. The next step is to look at a bunch of different alternatives for how we can address those. That can be increasing the pipe size. That can be adding a new pump station. That can be shifting flow in different directions to get it off of an area that's struggling to an area that maybe has some additional capacity. So we looked at a number of different alternatives, worked with Scott and his team on those. I think these were presented to the board in 2021. Culminated that down to about 5 alternatives total. And we looked at a number of different options or factors that could make way into the decision on which alternative is the best. We looked at cost. We looked at permitting challenges. We looked at operation and maintenance challenges. And we pulled all that information together. And ultimately, the SIGWASA board and Scott decided alternative 5 was the option you wanted to go with. So this next slide shows essentially what is alternative 5. I mean, we've made some slight modifications since we first identified it, but this is kind of the latest and greatest. So the colors on this map, in purple, those are going to be gravity sewer improvements. So new gravity sewer pipes. In the yellow dashed line, those are going to be force mains. And excuse me if y'all are real familiar with how the collection system works, but force mains are going to be the pipes that are coming out of the pump station. So those will be pressurized pipes. Then we've got the little boxes, the ones in red. Those are going to be lift stations that we're going to be abandoning. So we're going to get rid of those lift stations as part of the project. And then the ones in green, those are going to be new lift stations. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time with it, but just to briefly go through what those improvements are. We start on the eastern side at the Joe P lift station. To go back, yes, thank you. We're going to abandon the existing Joe P lift station, and then we're going to construct a new one a little bit to the west on the other side of Ledge Creek. There'll be some gravity sewer improvements. That's the purple line coming into that lift station, and there'll be a new force main, the yellow dotted line coming out of it. And it's going to work its way down Joe P Road, East Lyon Station Road, and then up West Middleton Drive before it dumps into a gravity sewer line. So if we move a little bit more west from there, you'll see that we're going to abandon the Joe P Booster lift station. So that's a station that's there because there's so much, such a great distance, if you will, that the flow is currently having to go. That flow comes into that station and it boosts, it raises the pressure and the elevation so it can make its way all the way down to where it discharges. Now, we're going to get rid of that. We're not going to need that. Then we're going to be doing a new East Middleton lift station. That's going to be located immediately adjacent to the existing one. And then we're going to abandon the existing lift station. And we'll have some gravity sewer improvements a little bit north of that. So that'll be able to receive some additional flow from future development in that highly undeveloped area north of Joe P Road. And then that's going to flow through a new force main And all of that, again, is going to work down East Middleton Road and then up West Middleton before it discharges into a gravity line on Will Soup. So then we're going to move a little bit north. There's the I-85 lift station there towards the top, just east of 85. That is a new lift station. There's not an existing one there. And that's an important lift station because what that's going to do is it's going to pull wastewater flow that currently goes into that north interceptor. If you remember, that north interceptor was the one with a lot of little red dots showing all those overflows. Well, we're going to get the flow off of that, and we're going to send it to the south interceptor. And the reason we're doing that is because the south interceptor is going to have additional capacity in it. And that's really going to limit how much of the north interceptor we have to upgrade, which is going to be a significant cost savings. So that station is going to be important for you in the future as more flow comes and more development occurs. So it's going to send the flow south. Then we're going to dump into a gravity sewer that's going to cross Interstate 85. That's going to be a major undertaking. Will be very interesting to go out there and look at. I would definitely encourage you to go out there when we have a 60-inch tunnel working its way under Interstate 85. It'll be a sight to see. So we'll keep going west down through some open area, and then we'll kind of weave our way through Butner. We're going to cross a couple existing lift stations, and we're going to abandon those. So that's a good thing, right? Because abandoning the lift station means less operation and maintenance for SIGWASA because the gravity lines don't require as much as a pump station. It means less electrical cost because we're not running pumps constantly. So we're going to abandon 3 lift stations along the way: Wilkins, Mount Hope, and 11th Street. And then the last improvement is the north interceptor there towards the top of the page. We're going to be upgrading that gravity sewer along the way.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I see on the northern side, you have an 18, a 21, and a 30. Why are we increasing and not one size like the bottom shows a 36 the whole way?
Yeah, good question. The reason for that is because as additional flow is coming into the line along the way, and we need to increase capacity along the way. So we could do a constant diameter, but basically we don't need a 30-inch on that upstream or the portion closer towards the east around the Murdoch Center. It would be oversized. So, and the larger the pipe, the more money it's going to cost to install it. So we tried to limit the diameters where we could, which is in turn going to save money, as opposed to, like you said, the south interceptor, right? That's a different story. That's 36 the whole way. That's because so much flow is coming from Creedmoor and from the town of Butner east of Interstate 85. We need that capacity like right away. And we're going to carry that 36 all the way through Butner.
What size is that 30 flowing into once the purple runs into the green?
So that's a really good question. So that is actually a 24 for one short stretch, and then it's going to transition to a 30. Now, why would you transition a 30 to a 24, right? Why not just do that extra 24? Well, the reason why is there's a creek crossing there, and that pipe is already exposed. So if we upsize that pipe across a creek, it's going to create more of a backup within the creek, which is going to be more of a floodplain. It's going to raise the floodplain elevation in that area, which is going to be more of a challenge to get permits. It's going to require a higher mitigation fee that SIGWASA has to pay. And we did the hydraulic evaluation to show that one stretch is fine. It doesn't create a problem hydraulically in your system. So keeping it really made a lot of sense. It saved a lot of money. It made the permitting a lot easier than what it would have been. And then you're in a 30 immediately downstream of that. That's a good question, yeah. And we did work with the state on that to get confirmation they were going to allow us to do that before we made that decision. So after we did that initial evaluation, we started into a preliminary engineering evaluation. This is where we worked again with Scott and his team and Joel to really dig into the details of those improvements, right? We were at very high level at that point. We know we want to get that pipe from A to B. Now the question is, how do we get it from A to B? We can take a lot of different routes to get it there, and that can make a significant influence on what the cost is. For example, if we're crossing more pipes, if we go down 28th Street instead of 29th Street, that's going to add money. If the ground elevation is 10 feet higher on this street than this street, then that's going to add a significant amount of money because it's a deeper excavation. So we try to optimize the alignment to minimize the cost, but also give SIGWASA the capacity it needs in the areas where it needs it. We also looked at force main. We looked at a more detailed hydraulic evaluation, again, to try to size it, right size it, if you will, for what you really need. We looked at the lift station configuration. How can we set it up such that folks like Joel and Robert Jackson, those guys, can maintain this thing? It's, I can put down on a sheet of paper what I think is right, but ultimately those are the guys who are out there doing the work. So they need to say, yes, this makes sense for us. So we worked with them to do that. And then we started collecting survey and geotechnical information. So we went out and did a lot of survey. You probably saw a lot of paint on the ground. That was the subsurface utility investigation. And then all the geotech, we did a lot of borings. There were drill rigs. You may have seen them out there on the side of the roads, drilling holes. Particularly important for when we're going under Interstate 85, for example, that we know what we're going to be encountering when we're got a 60-inch tunnel running under the interstate. So,
And how low do you have to go under 85? How far under?
really far under. So it's kind of elevated to begin with. And we are about, I think our trench is around 10 feet deep. So I want to say we're around 20 feet. Does that sound right, Bud? Around 20 feet below Interstate 85. So we've worked through the preliminary phase. We know what we're going to do. Now we're in the design phase. We're putting together plans. These are 24 by 36 inch design plans that have all the detail. We're putting in specifications, the binders that have all the details the contractor needs. We've got about 284 drawings right now. I think that's going to go up a couple, but we have a significant number of drawings that we're putting together for this effort. It's a big job. We've met with Sigwasa at different design intervals. So when I say I've got 30, 60, 90, what that means is around 30% of the way through the design, we sit down with Sigwasa and say, okay, here's what this is going to look like. Give us your feedback. Yes, you want this pipe here, but you don't want it here. You do like this type of pump. You don't want this type of pump. Going through those details and giving Sigwasa the opportunity to comment along the way. So hopefully, when the end product is what Joel and Robert and others envisioned it would be along the way, because they were part of the decision-making process. And then we've been providing cost estimates along the way as well. Permitting, I'm not going to go through all these permits. I just want to show off the fact that we've got, I think, 22 or 24, over 20 permits on this job. It is a massive undertaking. Scott's signing some document for me. I'm sure he feels like every other day. But it's a lot of permits. It's a big job. We're encountering wetlands and streams and Duke Power and Dominion Energy. And everything that you can imagine on a job like this, somehow we've managed to capture that into this. So we have a lot of permits, but we're making great progress. We have a bunch of approvals already and expect a lot more in the next couple of months. All right, so that was the background. I'll pause there. Any more questions before I move on to the next topic?
Michael, just not a question, but a comment. Would you just explain what the board members are seeing on this screen as far as the image?
Yeah, good question. So these are renderings that we've put together of what the Joe P. lift station is going to look like. So we've got some other renderings that Crystal's, I think, going to actually use some for the public meeting. The one at the top with all the green, this is a rendering, kind of an aerial view of that Joe P. station. So the road with the cars on, that's actually Joe P. Road. And then that's the driveway coming off of it. And then to a large parking area where there's the green roof. That's the actual building that will have all the electrical equipment, all the valves and everything. The little white area in front of it, that's going to be a really deep hole, probably 20 plus feet deep. That's where the pumps are going to be located. And then we've got in the back that little sunken area. That's going to be a stormwater feature that's going to be needed because of the added imperviousness that we're putting on the site. And then the picture below it is, so everything that we do now, we do in 3D in AutoCAD. We don't do 2D, if you will. It's all 3D. So you can actually go in there and rotate this thing and cut sections, and you can see what that pump station is going to look like. So super cool for Sigwasa guys, again, Joel and Robert, to see how these things look. The building there, you can see all those pipes above ground. That's where all the valves are going to be. And then behind that is all the electrical. So a lot of electrical equipment in that pump station. And then the section to the right of that is going to be the below ground feature. So that's where the pumps are actually located. So there's pipes coming in. The gravity pipes are sending the wastewater in there. The pumps are actually in the wastewater, and they boost it up and send it through that pressurized pipe, the force main, and send it down towards the wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you.
Okay, so our cost estimate, again, talking about project funding, we've been providing cost estimates along the way. This is the latest one. This was from January. It has a total fee of $75 million and change. And it includes, without getting into all the details, it includes a 15% contingency. We were higher earlier. As we progressed through the project, we lower that contingency. At 10% for overhead and profit for the contractor, and then escalation to midpoint of construction. That's essentially factoring in escalation as prices escalate throughout the years. This is pushing it to around the middle of the project. So if we start construction next year, this is going to be roughly a 3-year project. What are the prices going to be? Not today, but what are they going to be in 24 months from now, for example? Not included in this are construction administration costs and easement and land acquisition costs. So this is just the actual construction. All right. And 75 million is a big number. And I guess the next question is, how do we fund that? We're getting an American Rescue Plan Act grant. So Scott worked with his team to actually get what I want to say is one of, if not the largest, grants in North Carolina through the American Rescue Plan Act. A pretty remarkable achievement there. $35 million. That's grant money. That's free money coming to Sigwassa. There's a couple dates there. I'm going to come back to those in a second. The next source of funding is going to be the USDA. So working with Rural Water, I know Scott provided an email recently to you all in a major milestone. Very excited that after a lot of calls, a lot of emails, a lot of documents, they've approved everything, and Sigwassa has been tentatively approved. We'll finalize the numbers when the bids come in of up to $35 million. Okay. So we'll see where the bids come in from the contractors, and then that will help decide how much of that loan you actually decide to take, because you don't have to take the full 35. And then the last piece there is Sigwassa has to provide a match. So one of the things USDA says, okay, well, if we're going to give you $35 million loan, you have to have skin in the game as well. So they calculate what that number is. And in this case, it's $6.9 million. So Sigwassa contributes $6.9 million. USDA says, we'll give you $35 million. So that's in addition to. So all that adds up to potentially as much as $76.9 million. I mentioned those dates there, American Rescue Plan Act. So that has certainly created a lot of, I think, stress for myself and Scott and Jim and others. December 31st, 2024, that's this year. That's the end of this year. We need to have the portion of the project that's going to be funded through the American Rescue Plan Act. We need to have a contractor in place, under contract, ready to get to work. That's what we have. That's the deadline we have to meet. December 31st, 2026, that's the deadline that's the last time Sigwassa can submit a reimbursement to the state for funding. So the state doesn't give you $35 million. It says we can give you up to $35 million. And as construction is proceeding, actually as our design is proceeding and we're submitting invoices to Scott then works with Richard and then submits a request to the state and says, okay, CDM gave us an invoice for this, reimburse us that money, and they do that. Same way during construction. As the contractor submits their pay applications and Scott approves them, Richard's going to work with DWI, Division of Water Infrastructure, say, okay, we paid this, now reimburse us that money. And the deadline for the last time you can do that is the end of 2026. So a very important date there. But we don't want to leave any money on the table. Scott has reinforced that consistently. So don't want to leave any money, not free money, on the table. So those 2 dates are important. Now, how do we achieve those? This is a big project. This thing is not getting done that fast. So we decided to break it up into 2 separate projects. Instead of one project that's going to be $75 million, breaking up into 2. These colors represent the 2 different packages. And red is what we call construction package 1. And we're referring to that kind of on the side as the ARPA package. So that's the one that's going to be funded almost entirely using the American Rescue Plan Act, the grant money. And then the blue is construction package 2. That one is going to be funded almost entirely by USDA loan money and the Sigwassa match. Okay. And those are important because we feel we can get the first, we work with Scott to identify what components of the project can we get designed, permitted the fastest, that we can get on the street, advertise it, and get a contractor in place by the end of this year. Again, that's the deadline. That contractor in place by the end of this year. So we came up with what's in red there and said, okay, we feel like we can get all of that done in time for this year to meet that deadline. So that's an important component to that. another important piece to this is we put together our estimate for how much we think it is, right? But ultimately, it's whatever the bids are going to come in. What's the contractor going to say it is when we put it out in the street and they submit the bids to us? So we need to have a lot of flexibility, because what if they come in, hopefully not higher, but what if they come in lower? And we can, and we've set it up with Scott that you can kind of pick and choose different components of the project to try to get as close to the dollar amount that you want to achieve. That's very complicated. I simplified it. It's been very complicated. I think Bo has had a lot of headaches trying to figure out all the details, but I think we've got a pretty good plan in place to where when we open those bids, we're ready for what comes our way, whether it's higher or lower, or maybe we got it perfect. I don't know. We'll see. And then the second package in blue, we're going to advertise that a little bit later, because there's some components that are causing us to take a little bit more time. USDA has a few more hoops we have to jump through. There's some environmental impacts on the project that are going to take a little bit longer to permit. So those, we said, okay, we'll put that in that package. That we don't have the same hard deadline we do with the ARPA money, and we can advertise that a little bit later. It is important to know that these are very much tied together. The first one is not, the red is not going to come online until most of the blue is done. So we want to advertise them as soon as we can, so they finish as close to as we can as possible. So we're pushing very, very hard, but we do have a little bit more flexibility because of that.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
So I'm just going to give round numbers.
Yep.
The red, the 5 miles versus the blue being 20 miles. How is that equal to $35 million each?
Good question. The pump stations. So all the pump stations, or the main pump stations, Joe Pete and East Middleton are in red, and those are very costly. The Joe Pete, this is a big pump station. It's going to send millions of gallons of flow every single day through that station. So it's requiring 4 pumps, very deep wet well, a lot of electrical gear. East Middleton is a little bit smaller, but still, again, it's a larger station. It's going to cost a lot of money. I will say that they're not intended to be equal in dollar amount. And I'm going to show you in a second why that, or show you those numbers here in a second. But the reason for that is because when we did the first package, we want to be able to pick the improvements that get us to the dollar number that we want to achieve. When we did the second package, there are certain components to this project that, while it would be great to do it today, they don't have to be done today. It's recommended, but they don't have to. And so when those prices come in on that second package, if we've hit that number where Sigwasa says, this is where I want to stop, then Scott, I'm sure, will be working with the board to say, all right, we're not going to do this piece. We're not going to do this piece. We're not going to do this piece. And now this gets us to where we feel comfortable with from a dollar perspective. So it's a little bit, the blue is more than the red. So here are some of those numbers. So in the first construction package, this is the ARPA, $22 million. So it says base bid and bid alternate. So going back to what I was saying earlier, the base bid is what the contractor is going to submit on that says, this is the project. This is included in the work. The bid alternates, those are components that the contractor is going to say, I want this much for this one, this much to do this piece, this much to do this piece. And then Sigwasa has the opportunity to say, yes, no, yes. You can pick and choose from there, giving you flexibility depending on how the prices come in on the bid day. Okay. Our hope is that all of that comes in within the price that we have, and all of it gets constructed as part of this package. That's what we want. And we've kind of set it up that way to hopefully achieve that. But a lot of things can happen between today and when we actually advertise that could influence that number.
When is that proposed advertised time for the red?
So we're going to advertise, so we'll put it out for bids, notify all the contractors probably in late July to August timeframe. I think August is probably realistic because it's a larger project. We'll probably give them 6 weeks to put a bid price together. I'll tell you, it's a difficult market, and it's hard to get 3 bids, which is what North Carolina requires the first time. So if we give them 6 weeks and 2 contractors come in and give us bids, we can't look at them because it's only 2. We have to have 3, right? Okay. So if that happens, we'll re-advertise. We'll work with Scott to figure out a duration, a week, 2 weeks, whatever we think is appropriate. then we'll accept those bids again. Hopefully we get more this time. Hopefully we get 3. The more bids, the more competition, the better. But if we don't, and we only get 2, then we will open those 2. And as long as one of them is a responsible bidder, they meet the requirements, then Zigwatsky can accept that bid and move on. So to answer your question, I didn't really answer your question.
You said July to August, somewhere in that
To
time.
advertise, and then
Yeah.
we'll open bids in September, probably, maybe October if we don't get 3 the first time around. And then the second construction package, again, this is the one that USDA is going to fund a majority of. Base bid. So these are the improvements we're saying has to be done. That's $36 million. Again, Zigwatsky can get up to $35 million loan, and then you have over $6 million that you have to match. Okay. And then the bid alternates touch under $10 million. So to Mr. McLean's question, yes, this one's bigger, right? This one is more like 46, almost 47 million compared to the other, closer to 29. And those bid alternates we've identified there, those are the ones that don't have to be done today. Ideally, they are. Ideally, we get good bids and we build everything. But if the bids don't come in where we want, or they don't come in lower than we want, then those can be put on the shelf, set aside. And then as the improvements that we have that we're going to construct are done and more development comes in and additional revenue comes in, then you can put those projects out for bid and construct those because they will have already been designed at that point. You have a set of fully designed plans, fully permitted plans. You know, I mean, if we can't get it done, I hope Scott gives me a call and said, hey, we're ready to do, you know, I-85 lift station. Great.
And your projected timeline on this.
So all those need to be in place prior to 2045 and
So out to bid.
and constructed prior to 2045.
Well, wait a minute, back up.
Yes.
So
This is going out to bid.
not,
Oh, I'm sorry, the base bid.
Phase 2.
I apologize. Yeah, I misunderstood. October, November timeframe, we will advertise it. We hope to get bids in December. That's kind of a difficult time to receive
It
bids,
is.
right? So could it get pushed a little bit? It could. I think I mentioned earlier, there's some additional hoops that we have to jump through with USDA. So we'll see how that progresses. But my hope is to advertise this October, November time. Sorry, I misunderstood.
So possibly February, March with the holidays.
Gosh, I sure hope not, but it's possible. Yes, sir.
so just based on Mr. Commissioner McLam's question as well, CP1, the ARPA package, is really the one that will have to be to the board in December, no later than December of this year to meet that deadline. So that's what we'll focus on as well to get that pushed out, advertised, get a decision, a recommendation, and get a contract to the board. So it'll be right after Thanksgiving this year.
And that'll be critical.
Yep.
We want to hit that date.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Listen. Okay, so we're going to enter a project schedule. We'll jump to the next one. Created a quick schedule slide. We're in the final design phases now. When I say final design, I'm referring to designing it, to permitting it, and to getting the easements. Colors are a little light. My apologies. For the construction package 1, the ARPA, we're showing that getting done around the July timeframe, the first month of Q3. For construction package 2, we're showing a October timeframe to complete that phase. Hopefully we get all those USDA check boxes checked and we can advertise in that timeframe. Then we will bid the project for construction package 1. Hope to get advertised in the July-August timeframe. As Scott mentioned, it's very important that we get the bids, we have a responsible bidder, we get it approved by the board, and signatures on the contracts in the contractor's hand before the end of the year. Very important. And then for this construction package 2, you can see it lags a little bit. We're showing that 4 months later that we would complete the bidding around the April timeframe of next year. Excuse me, when I say complete the bidding, I mean also getting the contract approved by the board and executed in the contractor's hands as late as April. And then the bottom 2 there are the construction estimates. So for construction package 1, we're showing it starting around the beginning of next year and then extending for 3 years. So it's a very long construction. It's a very big job. So it's going to take a significant amount of time. For the second package, we're showing a little less than 3 years. We're working with Scott through a couple details on refining the schedule, but this is kind of where we're at right now. And then where are we going from here? So in the immediate future, we're working, Jim and his team are doing a great job with easements. Right now, there's a ton of easements that we're having to acquire for the pump stations. He's leading that effort and we're helping him through that, providing plats and other information. We're working through permitting. I mentioned there's 22 to 24 permits, so we're getting a lot of questions. Scott handed me a folder today with a bunch of signed permits, so we're going to get those all submitted. We're going to provide Scott and Joel a 100% design submission in April. That'll be, in theory, our final design. It may change a little bit based off of questions or comments, feedback that we get from the different regulatory agencies, the permitting agencies, the USDA, and the Division of Water Infrastructure. They give us feedback on things they want to see change, or could change a little. Don't expect much. And then working with Crystal on an upcoming public meeting in April. I think that's April 17th. So we're working with her to give her the information, and she's going to put together a lot of good information, to hopefully educate the public on what's coming. And I think that's it, the presentation.
I have another question whenever y'all. I'm sorry, I'm taking all the questions. Do you have a number of companies that follow CDM Smith? Bidding companies that normally follow y'all to bid these jobs?
So we have a lot of contractors that we work with because we design a lot of projects, right? So what we'll do prior to bid is we'll reach out to a bunch of contractors, and we've already had discussions with them and say, hey, here's this project. If you're interested, you may want to submit a bid. This is where we're going to advertise it. So there's a slew of those. Because of the size of this project being
That's
as big
the
as it
issue.
is,
Yeah, that's large.
we might get contractors from out of state. We are a national firm. So the good part about that is if a contractor's coming from another state or even another region, what we'll do is we'll reach out to our offices in those areas and say, hey, tell me about your experience working with this contractor, because I may not have worked with them before. I mean, that happened on the job not too long ago in Fayetteville. We had one come from Tennessee, never worked with them before. I called up our Tennessee office, and they gave me a lot of good information, helped me prepare for what was to come.
Excellent.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay, anything else?
That's all I got. Great answering the questions too. Thank you.
Got lucky. Well, thank you. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no, Mr. Chair, I would just like to say thank you to Michael and team for all that you've done to date. It's been about 4 years we've been working together. We've got about 3 years to go, which is fine. We're excited about the construction part coming up, and I hope the board enjoyed the in-depth presentation that you received today on the update. And we do have a public open house that we'll be advertising in April. That's what Michael was referring to give the public an opportunity in the afternoon to come in and take a look at the plans, ask us questions, and kind of see what's going on in their neighborhood, if you will, drill down at that level to see what these improvements are all about. So we'll continue to keep that communication rolling forward. But again, thank you so much for all that you're doing. And Reed and Bo, thank you as well for attending tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Our next item of business is the annual surplus property auction. This is an information only item, and Mr. Baum, are you gonna?
Okay, we haven't done an annual surplus. We typically have that once a year, but we've been kind of on hold since November 2020. We didn't have a lot of surplus. So in your agenda package, just a little background, on February 10th, 2009, the SWASA board passed a resolution for us to basically sell all the surplus through GovDeals, which is a public auction. Most of you are familiar with that, with the cities and counties that you're with. Related to that, the board approved a surplus policy. And in terms, that's a standard operating policy that kind of dictates. Both of those are in your agenda packages. And the analysis in accordance with the provision of board-approved administrative procedure governing the disposal of property, the executive director has identified several items, vehicles, and other assets that could be declared surplus. The list of the surplus properties in your agenda. Basically, the schedule for this is The executive director has determined minimum bid values for all the surplus items that are listed, and he and I will coordinate for a public auction on gov deals. That will probably happen in May. Should a surplus item fail to obtain a qualified bidder during the first auction, the executive director will determine if the value of the surplus item justifies the second auction, or if another form of disposition, such as discarding the item, is more reasonable for small items. Sometimes we have small items that just don't sell, and they're just not worth bidding. Let's say a chair doesn't get a bid. You may be better take it to the disposal. In your package, you have the resolution that authorizes our partnership with Gov Deals to do the auction, the administrative procedure outlining who is basically responsible for the procedure, and a list of the surplus property. Answer any questions. There is no recommendation. This is per the policy. This is a FYI only for the board. Gives you a chance to look at the surplus, ask any questions. If you have any objections to any of the surplus, that's what we're doing.
Good. Anyone have any questions, comments? Okay, since this is just an information only item, we'll move on to the next item on agenda, which is fiscal year 23-24 budget amendment number 9.
This budget amendment is number 9, as you said, fiscal year 23-24. Basically, it's a comprehensive budget amendment, kind of a general budget amendment. We're hoping that this is the final kind of general budget amendment for the year. It increases interest revenue based on our most recent projections. As you all know, when we did the budget last year, about this time, interest rates were zero, interest income was projected to be low. All of a sudden, interest rates went up. So we've talked about that in the quarterly meetings. So in this budget amendment, you'll see that we are now raising interest revenue to match those current projections based on interest rates. All kind of opposite of that, we're reducing connect tap fees. We all know that our new connections have kind of come to a halt for the last few months, so we don't see that tap fee reaching its budgeted projections. On the expense side, it realigns and appropriates some additional budget within the departments of various expenses, supplies, lab supplies, office supplies, pump station chemicals, and just general repairs. So you'll see within departments kind of budget being realigned where the needs are. It appropriates additional budget for general legal services, permitting at the water treatment plant facility. That's because DEQ raised some of their permit fees this year. And significantly, you'll see increased electricity costs at several locations, resulting from rate increases. We've all heard of those on the news. They are impacting some of our facilities and few of the pump stations significantly. This amendment also reallocates budget for expanded data collection and set up costs related to a utility cloud implementation at the wastewater facility. The amendment includes a realignment of budget within the utilities pump station department for $5,000. This was resulting from unexpected fuel costs. You recall, we have a Joe P. emergency pump around bypass pumping situation. I believe, and Scott could tell you, but I believe it was in December, January. And so we're just realigning some fuel costs that were related to that. The executive director, under his budgetary ordinance authority, which is listed in your agenda, did realign that budget from 1/17/24. The budget ordinance indicates that he'll bring it to the board at the next budget amendment. So we're doing that tonight. That's included in this one. You'll see a history of the prior 23-24 budget amendments to date. You'll see the board has approved budget amendments number 1 through 8. Total of those 8 amendments is $3,877,817. And then you'll see the budget amendment itself. We're increasing non-billing revenue, we're decreasing non-billing revenue, which is the category of the tap connect fees, by $45,000. We're increasing interest income by $800,000 for a total revenue increase, net revenue increase of $755,000. Expenditures, we're increasing the administration department by $25,000, human resources by $1,502. Billing and collections is being reduced by $1,502. Raw water is being increased by $8,000. Water treatment plants being increased by $26,216. Utilities water line maintenance decrease of $15,000. Utilities sewer line maintenance decrease of $1,000. Wastewater treatment increase of $80,000. Utilities pump stations and towers an increase of $24,500. Projects and studies is being decreased by $10,000. And you'll see we're transferring to fund balance, not from fund balance, $617,284. Total expenditures, $755,000. Strategic plan alignment, it's enhancing financial and operational components of the water system and the wastewater system. In your agenda, there's BA9 supporting documentation with much more detail of these interdepartment and fund balance transfers. And I'll answer any question. The executive director's recommendation is that the board of directors approve budget amendment number 9 as presented.
Okay. Any questions, Richard, on this? There's no question. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second to accept the budget amendment number 9. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. The motion carries. Item number 12, annual water supply plan. And this has become an annual rather than once every several years.
As far as I understand, that is correct. So I'm asking the board this evening to approve the resolution associated with the calendar year 2023 local water supply plan for Saguasa. The water supply plan is attached to the documentation this evening in your agenda. All the dates on the resolution have been updated to reflect the calendar year 2023 local water supply plan. I'll be happy to answer any questions that board members may have about the water supply plan that is attached. Otherwise, my recommendation is the board members approve the local water supply plan resolution shown in Exhibit A.
Any questions? Any discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Do we have a second? Any discussion on the motion? If not, we'll go to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And now for our next item on our agenda is the Saguasa website update. And we have a presentation by our Executive Director and Ms. Crystal Lee, Public Information Office.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take the lead and do the introduction here while Crystal gets ready for her video presentation. So as some of you may recall, in March of 2020, Saguasa upgraded its website platform from the previous version. And we used a platform, a business name EvoGov. And the website at that time upgrade was a great enhancement over the previous website, and it has served Saguasa well. In 2023, Crystal and I got together and we talked about doing what we call a refresh on the website. And that was basically to go through it, take a good look at how it's developed, some of the features, and see what we could upgrade on that program to make it more beneficial to our users. Initially I looked at doing an upgrade through EvoGov itself, but Crystal and her talents, she recommended and offered to actually take greater control of the website and the design and bring the project in-house. And she's done a fantastic job so far with the website. We have what we call an intranet, which is an internal site for employees that she created last year and that we've already been using very successfully. And we all love the interface that we have. And so now she's turned her attention to the public-facing website. And so Crystal has put together a brief presentation for us this evening. And before you present that, is there anything else that you would like to add before you hit the start button?
I'm just excited to be able to provide this communication solution to the public as well as our staff and the board and other stakeholders. I think that it will help us to serve the community in a greater capacity and provide a lot of the assets that I hear them requesting and making a lot of the processes digital. So making our services more convenient for the public to access. So I'm very excited about this project. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce.
Great. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In 2023, Saguasa conducted research, design, and development endeavors, resulting in the creation of an intranet site tailored to meet the needs of employees and stakeholders alike. This platform facilitates access to essential forms, files, and communication project systems, thereby fostering heightened productivity and a reduction in planning errors across various departments. Building upon this milestone achievement, the forthcoming phase of Saguasa's communication upgrade project shines a spotlight on the impending launch of the new official website. Anticipated to debut in April of 2024, this digital platform offers a streamlined layout designed to optimize user experience. With intuitively configured settings and applications seamlessly adaptable to mobile devices, coupled with a valuable video archive, enhanced blog, and an enriched engineering focus page, the website promises to serve as an invaluable resource hub. Saguasa team members, stakeholders, and appointed parties will receive a link providing full access to the beta site during the beta testing period beginning March 19th. Stay tuned for more details to come.
Great. Thank you, Crystal. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that was nice.
Thank you.
She's got skills.
Any questions, any comments?
Looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I think I probably
Yeah.
like it. I do too.
Yeah, we're all looking forward to it, I think. Yeah,
Especially if it's user friendly.
Yes.
absolutely. The more user friendly, the better, especially for old folks like me.
With big icons.
Yeah, big print.
I agree.
That's true. Yeah.
Big print.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, our next item on our agenda is comments from our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of items this evening. First, some thank yous to CDM Smith for your team and your presentation. I thought Michael was still here. I think we'll talk to him here after the meeting. But again, thank you to CDM Smith for the presentation. It's been a pleasure working with them for the last 4 years. They're an excellent firm, an excellent product here. I know that most of us want to see this project done. I've been happy with the progress we've made and look forward to getting into the bidding and the construction, and we will be done. We will get done. We'll be looking back and say, wow, that went quick. I also want to thank our team members here this evening for your presentations. Thank you, Richard Ballmer, our finance director, and Crystal Lee, our PIO. Also, Joe Coates is here this evening, our project manager, recently promoted. Thank you for attending this meeting so far, and thanks for your help on all the projects that you're working on. And also thank you to the board members for the actions you took this evening to continue advancing Saguasa forward to greater success. Just a topic in general, the Saguasa Finance Committee met on February 28th to get their first introduction and overview of the proposed 24-25 budget. The second Saguasa Finance Committee meeting for the FY 24-25 budget will be held on March 21st, 2024 from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. in the board chambers here.
1 to 4, something.
Yeah, 1 to 4. Depending on the outcome of the March 21st meeting, we may be in a position to hold the required public hearing for the proposed budget at the April 9th board meeting. Otherwise, we'll hold the proposed budget public hearing at the May 14th meeting. And lastly, on Wednesday, April 3rd, we will hold our Employees Service Awards Luncheon. We will recognize employees who have 5 years or more of service to Saguasa as of December 31st, 2023. Invitations to the board members will be sent out this week. So we hope that you may be able to join just for that event. That's all I have so far. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Wren, do you have any?
I'm sorry.
Have any comments, anything for us tonight?
I have two matters for executive session. One is a personnel matter, and the other one is for attorney-client privilege.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and there are comments from our board members. Councilperson Vicki Daniels.
No comments tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Robert Way.
I'm glad to see things warming up. I'm glad to see money go back in the budget system that we're not spending on the cold temperatures that we avoided this year for other issues. Hopefully our staff in the field got to rest a little bit more this past year than what they have in the past few years, as a matter of fact. So just appreciate everything that everyone does for Saguasa, especially our employees, ones out there in the field and ones in customer service.
Okay. Commissioner McClellan.
Thank you to CDM Smith for their presentation tonight. And sorry for my absence at the last meeting. Did have surgery that kept me away. But thank you to everybody that's a part of Saguasa. They're keeping everything rolling, and thank you to the board for keeping everything rolling while I wasn't here either. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Karen,
No comments this evening.
no comments. Mayor Jordan.
Just want to thank CDM Smith. It was a great presentation, very informative. And that's all that I have.
Okay. Yes, and I'd like to thank the guys from CDM Smith for being here. Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative and thank you. And also I want to thank staff for being here tonight. And as always, want to thank all of the employees at South Carolina Water and Sewer Authority for their dedication and their hard work. Thank you all. And with that,
Mr. Chair, just one last comment. I overlooked Ruben, our Assistant Finance Director, sitting there with Richard this evening. Ruben has done a wonderful job on our budget preparation for us as well. And he's a great asset that we've added to our organization. So I apologize, Ruben, didn't mean to overlook you. As I was looking for Michael to see where he went, he disappeared. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that.
thank you. Is there any further business to come before us tonight? If not, then I entertain a motion to go into closed session with a 10-minute break before we start.
Move.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Motion carries. And we will resume in closed session in about 10 minutes or less. We're now back in open session. Is there any further business to come before the board tonight?
Not for me.
If not, no further business to come before us, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. I don't think we need much discussion on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed likewise. Ayes have it. Motion carries. We'll adjourn.